Recently, I was in Portland, Maine to visit the corporate headquarters of WEX. WEX is comprised of four primary businesses: serving the needs of fleet mobility and fueling, corporate payments, travel industry payments, and employee and member benefits. While at WEX, I learned more about Sawatch Labs, which WEX acquired in May of 2024. Sawatch Labs uses mile by mile predictive analytics to determine electric vehicle suitability, cost modeling, infrastructure planning, vehicle management, and emissions reporting to help customers track and meet their goals for sustainability and profitability.
Sarah Booth, Director of Strategic Business Operations with Sawatch Labs. I've been with Sawatch for 7 years. Like you heard, we were acquired about 15 months ago by WEX, so we're part of the WEX team, incorporated with the WEX EV team, and we can bridge the gap for fleets that are either at really early stages of electrification, no electrification at all, or are moving on to the ones that are harder. They've done the easy wins, and they're like, what's next? And what we do is we build software to analyze that operational data to then understand how much energy does each vehicle need every day. And so we can do it at the really granular level, and our foundation is really based on understanding what does each driver need for their operations, because that's what matters most. And then, does an EV work? Does an EV do what they need? And if so, will you save money? And if so, where are you gonna need to put charging? And how do you optimize all of that? We are based in Denver, most of the team, of course, headquartered here in Portland, and I will kick it over to Mary.
Yeah. So Mary Till, I'm Senior Business Development Specialist for Sawatch Labs, and we've been with the company in that capacity for the last 6 years. And as Sarah mentioned, it's really important to us that those organizations and fleets that are looking to electrify do that in a really intelligent way. And so we help them by taking their data, their very vehicle-specific data, and helping them comb through these, what's a lot of data. It's really big data. How do we ferret insights out of that are really specific to them, and where to put those EVs, where to avoid putting EVs so we don't make mistakes, and how do we support them with infrastructure over time as we continue to electrify. So take the guesswork out of it and plan up front.
So we do work with kind of all types of fleets, all different shapes and sizes, small municipal fleets, up to fleets that are operating in all 50 states and have 30,000 plus vehicles. The freight side, much less so, but we do work with fleets that have Class 8 trucks in more regional hauling type of experiences. In fact, we have a fleet that we've analyzed their fleet for them for 3 years. Operations change, the market changes, right? You need to understand what's working for you now. That just took possession of their first Class 8 electric truck 4-ish months ago. And they're running back and forth from a warehouse multiple times a day, and their route is working out really well for them. Class 8, there's a lot of reasons it's hard. Over-the-road trucking, everyone knows the limitations, won't go to that. But there are applications where those Class 8 trucks work well. And I would say we're not a pro EV company. We really focus on getting the right trips on the right tech. And so we value just as much when we say, hey, this vehicle is a really good fit for replacement with an EV. We value it just as much as when we say, hey, do not put EVs in this application. This is going to impact your driver negatively, which means they can't get their job done. And that's what matters, first and foremost. And then also, of course, if it's going to be saving money or not.
We can work with all vehicle classes. Of course, we're limited by what's available on the market and what's realistic for some of the duties that are being done. But we certainly have placed a lot of light duty vehicles in because the TCO there pencils out more frequently than in the heavier duty classes. But as Sarah mentioned, we have had some success with those higher class vehicles. And one thing that we found is that the drivers typically remark on how much more comfortable those electric vehicles are, particularly in those big classes where they're used to vibration and other maybe more unpleasant experiences in some of those vehicles. But the TCO is often not found there. But we've done everything, every different type of operation, from 24/7 hot seated vehicles to vehicles traveling across the state, and potentially overnighting at a different location each night. And So we see success and we see areas where electric vehicles just don't make sense, and really across all classes.
And I think one of the things, passenger vehicles move first, right? That's available on the market. Mary said it makes sense from the TCO standpoint. We saw municipalities and public sector fleets move early and move first because primarily they had policies that were driving this. We've been working with fleets for 7 years on this, so we've seen a bit of a shift in the last 3-ish or so years, kind of as fleets rolled out of whatever their new norm was after COVID had disrupted so much, to more private sector fleets and commercial fleets saying we have 2025 or 2030 corporate sustainability targets that they want to hit, and now they're ready to, there's more vehicles available on the market, so it makes more sense. There's some really big gaps in the market around the 3/4 ton, 1 ton pickups. We work with a lot of fleets that use those vehicles every single day. They tend to idle a lot, which means you have an opportunity for a lot of savings and fuel reduction if you can get an electric vehicle in there. Those vehicles don't exist right now. We have fleets being like, is there anything we can put here? Sorry, there's not. Another thing that we see where there's a big gap is the small cargo vans. So you see a lot in the European market. They're all over. We don't have them here to date in a way that fleets can use them. And again, fleets are like, we really want to fit this space. It's a good application. We'll save money. And it's not there. I think another place we're starting to see maybe much more movement is that cargo kind of like e-transit size vehicle where you see them with Amazon, right? And you see other delivery fleets using them. We're seeing municipal fleets, last mile delivery, other smaller industries that are starting to use those vehicles. Again, if you idle a lot, it's a really good way to reduce that fuel spend if it works for the distance you're traveling, right? So you really want to make sure, of course, you're checking that first. In most of those cases, they have a number of vehicles that are operating, coming in and out of the same depot, right? Or they're also take-home vehicles. And we saw fleets initially not want to touch take-home vehicles because of all the complexity around how do you deal with charging at one of your driver's homes, how do you reimburse them, all of that. And that has been an area in the last 18 months, 2 years, that we've seen a lot more interest from fleets on both the commercial side and the public sector side, trying to tackle how do we work with take-home vehicles. Because often that's limited typically because they're coming back to their house at night, right? And it works out really well. I think if you're talking about anything where they're going multiple days and then, from one site to another state, those are usually not good cases, right? Because you would have to charge multiple times en route. You'd have to have charging at both facilities. And that's one of the things that we would say, based on our analysis, that's not going to get a passing score. Like even just the parking variance would be enough to say, hey, this would be really hard. Even if you save a lot of money, the complexity around here on the charging side might not make it worth it. See that also on the charging side too, like OEMs are trying to figure out like, well, you need a vehicle and you need charging, right? It is different than you're buying your gas-powered vehicle and you're good to go. What we see is most fleets are operating with multiple OEMs, and they have a hesitancy to follow the recommendations from an OEM that's trying to sell them vehicles. We are a neutral third-party advisor, no dog in the fight. We will analyze we will include in our analysis whatever EVs you would consider purchasing. We certainly work with fleets that are like, hey, we only buy Ford and GM, and so those are the only models we'll include in there. But that neutrality helps them have some trust in kind of what we're saying is a good fit and what isn't.